Good evening, everyone. It's on or about 6:30, so I'll call this meeting to order and ask you to please silence any cell phones or personal devices or anything that makes strange, funny noises, with the exception of members of council, of course. Oh, Councillor Rowley. All right, we're going to carry on. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the December 2nd, 2019 Council meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to declare on 9/1 the flooding report, since I own waterfront property. I presume that would be a conflict, so I prefer.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, everyone. And we'll move into announcements. I have a couple of specific announcements, but they are presentations, so I'll leave those to the end. Are there any other announcements? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on behalf of the Fair Share Food Bank, I want to thank Council for supporting and being present at the CP holiday train Thursday past. Just a bit of an update. CN was generous this year. They gave us an extra $1,000, so they gave us a $5,000 check, plus we raised another $2,600 and 1,000 pounds of non-perishable food. So thank you to the community.
CP. You said CN. It's okay.
Ones that fix the track.
Right. There it is. Are there any other announcements? Councillor Bateman.
I just want to announce over the weekend for the second year in a row, I worked with the NHL alumni, and I mentioned it because it's Brighton specific. They always allow us to participate, and it was only Brighton participating. We had players on the ice, citizens on the ice, skating with the former NHLers, but we were able to raise $1,000, over $1,000 that went to Special Olympics Ontario, and an equal amount that will be divided by 2-3 organizations here in Brighton as well. So it was a successful overall for Brighton and overall for their main goal. So
Brilliant.
Great.
Thank you. Anything else? So I would like to call Melanie Masters and Nigel Roberts up. These two folks manufactured sandbag fillers during our flooding event, and it helped the neighborhoods that were experiencing flooding put sand in bags much quicker than they were with shovels. So come on up here. Just come through. Come around there. Yeah. On behalf of the members of the Municipal Council and the citizens of Brighton, we extend our sincere thanks to Nigel Roberts. Nigel manufactured and placed sandbag fillers during the 2019 high water event in the Municipality of Brighton to help residents protect their shoreline cover. We extend our appreciation for stepping up to help. You want the envelope? And I'd like to call the members of the Royal Canadian Legion up. They are actually presenting us with some. So this was presented to the municipality from the Legion for our sponsorship and our help with the Raise the Roof Fund. And this is, of course, our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
And don't put the cameras away. We have a couple more presentations coming up, but not quite yet. We'll move into the adoption of minutes. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council approve the November 4th, 2019 council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council approve the November 12th, 2019 planning meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council approve the November 18th, 2019 council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, so we'll move into delegations and presentations. And I will ask the fire chief to come forward, please. I'm good.
Well, I think I can be heard fairly well.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mayor Ostrander and members of council, it's indeed our pleasure, Deputy Ogden, and my pleasure to be here this evening to present to three of our members their 20-year exemplary fire service medal. This medal is presented. It was actually created on August 29th. 1985 to honor members of recognized Canadian Fire Services who have completed 20 years of service, 10 years of which has been served in performance of duties involving potential risks and were employed on or after the date of creation of the medal. Recognized fire services includes Canadian Fire Departments, Fire Marshal's Office, and other fire commissioners' offices and within the country. This is presented on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor, of course on behalf of the Queen. So these medals are certainly an honor, and after 20 years of service in the fire industry, they're certainly well deserved. And we have three members here tonight. Well, two. I don't think the third one made it.
I don't mean to correct you, Chief, but they're presented on behalf of the Governor General.
Oh, the Governor General. Okay. Anyhow, we have three members. I'd like if Jeff Bishop and Kory Hietala would come up, please.
I'm going to move my desk
Yeah,
forward so we can get
that
them now.
would be great.
And I have one more. Hold tight.
Okay. All right. Gentlemen, these are presented. There is a certificate and the medal, which you will then be entitled to wear. And certainly our pleasure to present them tonight.
Gentlemen, on behalf of council and the municipality and a grateful community for your years of service, we thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, that's the certificate from council, which says exactly essentially what the chief just said, so I'm not going to repeat it. And that's yours, Kory.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, hang on. Come on, everybody in.
Okay. Make a bigger circle. Yes.
Okay.
Jeff, congratulations. Kory.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's there. Oh, okay. That's great. That's for Brian. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. I saw a lot of that going on the highway today. And our delegation is from the Brighton-Cramahe Chamber of Commerce, tourism proposal by the Chamber Board. Mario is here. I saw Mario come. Jeff, I didn't see Jeff Lay. Okay, very well. Come on up. We are recorded, so we will need you to turn the microphone on. Yeah.
Yep, right there.
There you go.
Good evening, Mayor Ostrander, councillors, and thank you for your time tonight and for having us here. I am the president of the Brighton-Cramahe Chamber of Commerce, and we're here to provide you with our tourism proposal. But first, we'd like to begin with an overview of the things and milestones that we've been able to accomplish this year in 2019 and our vision for 2020 and beyond. The Brighton Chamber of Commerce is committed to providing support that fosters a healthy business community within Brighton and Cramahe. As the voice of business excellence, we initiate events that help build a vibrant, robust community. We strive to continuously improve. We work with our community partners. Our board consists of volunteers who work locally, have businesses locally, and are invested for the community. So I'm here to speak on behalf of that business community. These are the 2019 government partners that we've had, or that we've been lucky to work with this past year. Cramahe Township, Municipality of Brighton, Northumberland Tourism, Bay of Quinte, the digital footprint that was released in Northumberland, which I will go into detail, the DBIA, and the Business and Entrepreneurship Conference that was ran in Coburg. This is our chamber network that we rely heavily on, and we communicate with these partners regularly. We have an open line of communication with delegates at all of these organizations, and we use them often. Our core mandate in our organization is networking and marketing. This slide illustrates some of the events and initiatives that we have worked on throughout the year, and we were lucky to host many of you at these events. Our ultimate goal is to connect the community. We are steadfastly working on our strategic plan for 2020 to 2024. We just wrapped up 2019, and I would say we delivered very well on all the metrics that we had outlined. We will be unveiling our full strategic plan at our AGM on February 27th, 2020. These are your 2019 Chamber Board of Directors. Myself, Jeff Lay, Kristen Fletcher, John Karaki, Killeen Hilwerda, Bobby Wright, Melanie and Neil Ledger, Jennifer Ryan, and Lisa Voigt. Many of these businesses represent several different industries in our community: retail, financial services, construction, tourism. We look for the right skill set that will complement our board and provide us with access or knowledge that we cannot gain with the people that we already have. On top of that, we also focus on staff and community outreach. We hosted this year's federal election debates in the bottom left corner. We were able to participate and work with you on the Apple Fest. And also, we deliver many presentations throughout the community. To the bottom right, you'll notice we were at the Colburn Lions Club, also connecting with those partners in our community, delivering on what we, there we go. Delivering some of the messages that we are bringing to you today. So our big wins from 2019, we were able, or this was the first time ever we worked on Apple Fest with the Brighton Municipality, and I'd be bold enough to say I believe it was a great success. The digital footprint in Northumberland, the Brighton-Cramahe Chamber of Commerce Home and Garden Trade Show, the awards gala that we hosted here at the King Edward Arena, and the Business and Entrepreneurship Conference in Coburg. Here are some of the stats from those events. This was our second year, if you can believe it, with the number of people that attended. 140 attendees at our 2019 event, 11 awards, 37 nominees. We're looking forward to our third year running the show, March 26, 2020. We hope you can all attend. This is a great photo, great slide of all the winners and the people that have attended our event, the awards that were handed out. We're very lucky to have the community and the business support in Brighton, and I think this picture illustrates very well the kind of event we're trying to promote, which is, again, our core mandate, networking and marketing within our community. Our trade show stats, 2018 launched in Colborne. This year we moved to the King Edward Park. We had 50 booths both years, 850 attendees verified, so 100 attendees more than the previous year, and this year we will be returning back to the Keeler Center. We made a commitment to alternate our events between each township every year. The digital footprint assessment, I'm not sure if you are familiar with, but we had 75 businesses in Northumberland County participate. We were able to help 30 of our own businesses from Brighton-Cramahe participate. The cost was about $500 per participant, where they audited each of our businesses' digital footprint and helped come up with efficiencies, whether it was through their social media or web presence. And we also helped host the October 2019 Business Conference in Cobourg. We had 140 businesses attend. It was a sold-out event. Our very own Jacqueline Pennington was able to be on that board, as well as, I believe, another Brighton business. These are the assets we currently have and that we have been working on for several years. The Discovery Guide to your left is a publication that we own and run every year. We also include a mayor's page in that publication for every Brighton and Cramahe resident. In the middle, we have our kiosk that we currently staff throughout the summer for 30 hours a week. It helps us to connect with our Presqu'île visitors and try and direct them to our downtown core. And in 2017, we did a map for Cramahe, which took about 4 months to complete. That's the map on your right. And we're currently in negotiation to reprint and refresh that map. And it's something that we would love to do for this municipality. So our proposal: collaborative promotions through shared tourism and marketing services. We believe the municipality has a responsibility to promote the community, which is one of our core mandates, as I shared before. We also want to kick up our visitor kiosks to 3 in total. So we want to have 1 kiosk in the downtown Brighton core, 1 in the downtown Cramahe core, and keep our existing kiosk as well running throughout the main summer months from May to September. And we are also recommending a marketing fund for future promotional efforts. We are aware that you're forming an economic development committee, and we believe this would have some tangible benefits for our existing businesses in our community. Our 2020 strategic initiatives. We want to continue networking and create learning opportunities, review the Discovery Guide, as I mentioned, maintain our business directory, update our own website, maintain our social media, and establish a viable strategy going forward. Continue with our awards, our trade show. The kiosk, I think, is a nice addition to our existing strategy. Maintain our data. Continue to work with you to manage that Applefest Street Fair and enhance our agreement, and work on other collaborative marketing opportunities with the municipality. Our agreement would look to last from spring 2020 to winter 2024. The investment is $26,500. Annual cost increases shall be no more than 5% a year, and additional services may be negotiated as needed. This concludes my presentation, Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Mario.
You're welcome.
I'm going to open the floor to members of council to see if they have any questions for you.
Okay.
Council? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. And I'm just wondering, you're asking for 26,500, and I'm just wondering, besides Apple Fest, what that would include for Brighton, if you have something to flesh that out.
Absolutely. I mean, many of these items, I think, can be finalized in a memorandum of understanding. However, we want to continue managing Apple Fest Street Fair. We already, I believe, is in your budget the sponsorship for the Business Achievement Award, so that would be included. The mayor's page in the Discovery Guide, that would help fund the tourism kiosks, provided that all our other partners get on board, and we're pretty confident about that. And also being able to maintain the digital business directory for your municipality annually.
Do you have a follow-up?
I'm just wondering what business directory that is.
We currently curate a business directory for the municipality. We have not, I believe we have not provided that to you in the past, but that is work that we take on under our organization, and we would be happy to work with you to provide that to you for your own use, whether it's your website or where you see fit.
Thank you.
Councillor
You're
Anderson?
welcome.
Well, first of all, I think someone should thank you for the great work the chamber did with the Apple Fest. It was fantastic. I know you worked real hard, and I was at some of the meetings that you were struggling at first, but it really went well. So I'd like to pass that on to you right now. And when you talk about costs about kiosks and that, you've got one now and you want to add two. Are these the one like you showed us, a display of the one near Presque? Or are you talking about the individual ones like the Bay of Quinte has?
We would be talking about some pop-up, potentially mobile kiosks in our downtown core. So to answer your question, Ron, they're not like the one we have, well, they would look like the one that we have right now in Presqu'île, probably a scaled-down version of that, but not unlike the ones you've seen in the Bay of Quinte.
And what about your profile you refer to it as downtown Brighton? I know where you are. You're located now where you are, but I've always, my idea of a chamber of commerce is where everybody knows where you are and you're accessible to everybody, not just tourists. Tourists are very important, but the community at large want information, and I think your business directory is excellent. I think it's something our economic development will probably be looking at anyhow, but if you can tie those things together, but how do you feel about that in your strategic plan? I'm sure that probably came up.
Yeah, we're not set on a location at the current time. We wanted to discuss with our municipal partners, yourself included, Ron, to determine where the optimal place would be for placement of that kiosk. But it's something that we've surveyed our local businesses about, specifically our members and the greater community, and they've all voiced that concern, that they would love to have a voice or a place to welcome our visitors where they are more visible.
One more
Follow-up?
You know we're connected with the Bay of Quinte Tourist Board now, or the Bay of Quinte Tourist
Regional Marketing Board.
Is there going to be some overlapping here between our own economic development, that group, and your group, or will you be able to see that where that can perhaps all come together, and perhaps all three groups can come together at some point to come up with a great plan for the community?
You're killing me, Ron. No, I'm trying.
Just on my mind. It's just on my mind.
Actually, you bring up a great point. We've actually started forming subcommittees within our organization, and we just had our first marketing committee meet, and we had 2 delegates from the Bay of Quinte Marketing Board join us for that meeting.
Excellent.
So we are not we're not a silo. We want to work with those partners. I think we are talking more local, boots on the ground, residents and directors that live in this community that can make an impact on those real grassroots initiatives that Bay of Quinte, I believe, has a bit of a more macro oversight on the overall economic strategy. Does that answer your question, Ron?
Excellent.
Councillor Tadman.
Mario, the 10,000 was given, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was last year, was the first year that it was given to this group. And before that, Apple Fest ran on its own, is that correct? You both, yeah. So could you just tell me for that 10,000, what were the activities that the chamber did?
Absolutely. So we were involved in collecting and verifying insurances with the business owners that were all organizing or signing up for the fair. We were also in contact with the insurance companies to ensure that they were properly insured. We took that information. We were also required to remit payment information. Okay, and work with, I believe, the municipal staffers. And also, the day of the event, we were responsible for taping the street the night before until midnight, being there the day of, helping the various businesses find their booth. And we were also responsible to be there the day of to help coordinate. In actual fact, there were a lot of things we weren't aware that we were going to be responsible for. But it turned out, as there's a lot of growing pains in the first year, and we were prepared for that, and I think we executed well.
Follow-up?
So, thank you. So you would be expecting that the 10,000 would come again next year if you were willing to participate and do that same job?
Absolutely.
And so is that 10,000 part of the 26.5 or whatever you were asking?
Yes, it is.
And the other 15 is for the kiosks mostly?
Not mostly, but a portion of it.
And staffing?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mario, will you, I have a suspicion that we'll probably end up referring this to budget, but we'll see how this goes.
Of course.
Will you be providing some sort of breakdown or larger, better information than a PowerPoint presentation for staff for budget purposes?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Last chance. Go ahead.
I just wonder, how come this didn't come through the new hire for economic development? And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now.
His name is Ben Hagerman.
Ben. Okay, thank you. Instead of it coming through the chamber.
I think this is a proposal from the Chamber of Commerce.
So would not normally the economic development person bring that forward?
I think they asked to be a delegation at this meeting.
Okay.
To provide this proposal, yeah. And I have so Councillor Anderson and Councillor Bateman, this is a motion to receive the delegation. Should we also refer it to budget deliberations? Is that a fair addition? I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the delegation from the Brighton-Cramahe Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, Mario Guzman and Jennifer Ryan, and refer to budget deliberations. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Candace, are there any, Madam Clerk, are there any citizens' comments? Thank you. So we'll move into staff reports. Our first report is from Chief Caddick with regard to the 2019 flooding report and recommendations for service levels. Chief, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The Council receive the 2019 flooding report and adopt option 2, provide sand and bags for our residents as a sustainable option moving forward, and that this be communicated to our residents as soon as possible. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We're just waiting for Councillor Tadman to be retrieved. I suspect she thought that would take a little longer. My guess is she thought it might take about 7 minutes. As I recall. I bet it was. Yeah. So if she gets crabby, it's all your fault for not having 7 minutes of conversation.
I need to defend myself here, and those who eat too much, they get cranky when they don't have enough to eat.
Hear, hear. Our next report is the Fire Department Monthly Report, April through June 2019. Chief Caddick, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receives the Fire Department Activity Report for April to June 2019. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
I spoke to Chief Caddick earlier, and I was just going to ask if he could speak to my question. And I like all the work they did, but I wanted information so everybody could have it on the number of calls that were 401 related, because I think when we spoke, that's like 90% of our.
So through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, I did do some very quick calculation here after we spoke, given the two, and I'm going to have the information for the 2 periods, the 2 quarters that I have been reporting on, and we were looking at about 20 calls of service to 401 for auto accidents and that sort of thing. So that represents, when you look at the total number of incidents, at about 180. 20 calls is not a large number, but it does represent some time. I can tell you that just recently, as recent as the 1st of this month, it was announced through MTO, because we are funded through MTO to respond to those calls, and they've increased our funding rate starting December 1st to $485 per hour per truck that goes out there. So, and that is fairly significant, and I think, and I'm sure Mrs. Whitfield might correct me, but I think we're around 30,000 annually that we receive. Is that's kind of a ballpark figure that we receive annually from MTO for our services on the 401. So it is revenue generating for our department.
Councillor Bateman.
I just want to thank the fire chief. I just thought it was important because when we spoke, you talked about the increase, and we all see every time the 401's closed, we know right away with the volume of traffic, so it's good to know that the provincial government recognizes that as well.
It is good to know that. I do suspect, however, that it's not quite cost recovery.
Not really.
Yeah. So we'll continue to work on that with our friends at the province. It'll be a long struggle, I'm sure. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next report is with regard to the Fire Department Monthly Report, July to September. Chief Caddick, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Are there any questions? Oh, sorry, I'll read the motion first. Moved by Councillor Tadman, second by Councillor LeBlanc, that council receives the fire department activity report from July to September 2019. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Our next report is with regard to the update amendments to the official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw for the municipality of Brighton. Mr. Ty, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Your worship, members of council, the report before council this evening is intended to bring closure to two major updates, one to the Brighton official plan, one to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Having said that, we have with us Diana Kay, manager of planning with DM Wills Associates, who completed the work, and she would be pleased to answer any questions of council.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. First, I'll read the motion, and then I'll open the floor for discussion. There's a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley. There's a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The council receives the report regarding the update amendments to the official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw, Municipality of Brighton, and that council proceed to enact bylaw number 129/2019, thereby serving to adopt amendment number 6 to the official plan for the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton. And further, that council proceed to enact bylaw number 130/2019, which serves as an amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw 140/2002, as amended, of the Municipality of Brighton. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question, as this is just amending our official plan. I know in a few years we will have to review the complete plan. What date is that, Daryl, or what year will we have to do that? Or will this carry us for 5, or do we have to review sooner than that?
Diana may wish to weigh in on this. However, the next steps to your official plan, we're unable to approach those until the county first updates its official plan.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Mayor, to Diane. There was an amendment changing the lines, the red line, to bring in a mature neighborhood to the northwest. Or not a mature neighborhood, but to add the line so that houses could be built there in the corporation when you had your first red line. Was that done?
Through you, Your Worship. The intent is, the red line that you're referring to is the built-up area, and that's actually established by the province. We did have an addition where there was an error in the mapping that removed some of the lands, which we had to put back in. So the red line can't really be adjusted until you start meeting your targets, which is why we propose the secondary plans as at least an opportunity to start thinking about future planning and development in your municipality, so that way when the time comes and you can move that red line, you're ready for it. And through Your Worship, I'd just like to follow up with Councillor Rowley as well. I have spoken with the county with respect to their updates, and they're anticipating probably starting their update within 2 years, so you're probably about 4 years away from a municipal comprehensive review.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Mayor. On dealing with this, I learned a lot through mature neighborhood and official plan, thanks to you and Daryl, the people, the questions that were asked. The one thing that you brought up was our future developments, instead of piecemealing it, was to basically the town to do a comprehensive plan of our future development. So any developer that would come and want to build on lower lands would have to make sure that all the infrastructure is in place for the upper lands. We would put the parks or walking trails or whatever would all be part of the plan. So because we still have a lot of land to develop. When should we start looking at this as a council to hire a consultant to do these plannings for us, so that anybody that wants to build on these properties don't do it in pieces? 3 hectares here, 4 hectares here, the whole 32 hectares are done. This is the plan. When should we look at that, looking forward?
Through you, Your Worship, it really is up to the municipality at this point. Of course, there's additional consultants and costs associated with that. Given that the new official plan is proposing higher densities, it's an effort that would hopefully bring development targets to you sooner, so that way developers and property owners who are waiting to enhance the municipality with future development can do that sooner rather than later. Meeting a target of 42% in your current boundary with only low-medium density would take a very long time. So you probably want to start looking at in the near future to determine with property owners in those areas that are considered greenfield areas sooner rather than later. Just engage into the process and figure out the future planning opportunities that are available to you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Very well. Any other questions? So the next step, if assuming we pass this evening, would be it goes off to Northumberland County for approval, and they have, 180 days?
Through you, Your Worship, that's correct. So tonight, the zoning bylaw is under council of, or the township of Brighton, the municipality of Brighton, under their authority, and then the official plan, because the county is the approval authority, will have to go with them. I have had fairly regular discussions with Dwayne Campbell, manager of planning. There are no significant issues, so I doubt they'll take the 180 days. There are a couple of things to work through, but it's looking very positive.
Thank you. For council's information, I've had discussions with the CAO and the planner at the county as well, and they're well aware this is coming and are ready to help make this happen more expeditiously than perhaps the 180-day limit allows. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Once it's reviewed and approved by the county, is it still required then to go to the province as well? Or are we?
I believe the county has delegated authority, but I'm looking to the planners for confirmation.
Through you, Your Worship, that's correct. The county is the approval authority.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Mayor. On the mature neighborhood, from the study, it looks, what we were discussing was the mature neighborhood would be wrapped into the official plan. Is that the way it's going?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, the recommendations that came out of the mature neighborhood study were then carried forward to the official plan and then implemented through the zoning bylaw, which was the intent of having all three run concurrently.
Could you talk to us about the appeal period, when it starts, when it ends, etc.?
Sure, through you, Your Worship. So if the zoning bylaw receives approval tonight, a notice of passing will go through, and the appeal period will commence once that notice of passing is made public. However, the official plan, once the county adopts and approves that update, then another notice of passing will go out. So unfortunately, the notices or the appeal periods after those notices won't run concurrently, but there will be an appeal period of 20 days established after each get approved, in which an appellant could come forward.
Thank you. And have you heard through the various processes that have been undertaken any serious objections or any concerns that council should be aware of?
Through your worship, no serious objections. There was one with respect to the urban built boundary, but of course that type of project is deferred to the municipal comprehensive review and outside of the scope of work. And we had good discussions with that resident, and we have an action plan for the future, as you know, they're very interested in getting inside the urban boundary.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor LeBlanc?
Through you, Mayor. For the amendment for, let's say, for instead of piecemealing a large greenbelt land that's for development, how would that process go through? Would it be the council that would recommend it? I'm asking for assistance here to do this. Would it be a motion that I would bring up? Or as a councillor?
So through you, your worship, essentially if you're discussing about the secondary plans, it would run the same way as the mature neighborhood study and the zoning bylaw updates, in which a municipal staff would recommend potentially a proposal or an RFP go out in which consultants can bid on, and whoever awarded that bid can commence that process. The secondary plans run very similar to an official plan amendment. They're essentially mini official plans. And in our recommendations, we've proposed 3 areas. And for sakes of efficiencies and ensuring that there's connectivity between the infrastructure and services that would be required, we would recommend that they run all together.
So I think what we could do is, once the official plan is approved by the county and the appeal period is done, we could have a chat with staff about, from a planning point of view, when it would be wise for us to go down that road. I'm hearing your opinion is likely that we should do it sooner rather than later, and I would suggest that perhaps you and I share that opinion. So we'll just we'll see where the planning folks want to go. I don't want to presuppose anything, but I would think we'd also want to start putting stuff into the budget or a reserve of some sort for future planning consultations.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at voting bit here. You're going to have all the ones that have been delayed, approved.
Microphone.
Delayed, approved, and piecemeal, and stormwater management plans and ECAs, and this way it could all be done as one, and like the water lines, the sewer lines, stormwater management is all done. So if any builder wants to build on 3 acres or 4 hectares, he knows what he's got to meet.
Precisely. Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next report is with regard to 2019 tax write-offs. Director Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council approves the 2019 tax write-off report and authorizes staff to adjust the tax accounts. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. The next report is with regard to Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1, Expression of Interest Report. And Director Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The Council authorizes staff to apply to the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1 for funding to undertake a third-party information technology master plan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. Our next report is with regard to the OPP service contract proposal. Mr. Castleman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute a 5-year agreement for the provision of police services between the Ministry of the Solicitor General and the Municipality of Brighton as depicted in Schedule 1 attached hereto. Is there any discussion? Councillor Anderson.
Your Worship, it might be a good time now to look at our level of service from the OPP regards to enforcement of speed limits, things like that we've talked about this year. The public has actually come forward with a lot of concerns, and not necessarily the level of service, but perhaps how it's being done and what can be done using the same level of service that we have. But I don't know if it's a good time to bring something up now, or.
Well, I think now would be the appropriate time to have a conversation about it. I would suggest that what we would want to do is enter into this agreement and ask staff to undertake a report and bring back some suggestions, recommendations, costing analysis for what an increased level of service would be. Is that a fair move?
Can I make that motion?
What I'll
put
do,
it in a form of a motion?
Well, what I'll do is after we have this discussion, I'll ask the mover and seconder if they permit a friendly amendment, and if not, then I would look to you to put an amending motion on the floor. But we'll see what happens when we get there.
Perfect.
Councillor Bateman?
Thank you for what you're talking about there. Is that if we approved it, you negotiate after it was approved, the service level?
So what we would do is enter into the 5-year agreement with the OPP for the current service level, ask staff to bring back some costings and what an increase in service level would be. We can then go back to the OPP and renegotiate our contract with them. We're not tied into the basic level of service that we get now. If we wanted to increase, like any organization, they'd gladly take our money.
So my follow-up would be like similar to Ron's question, because I don't want to say, are we getting an increase? My question would be more basic. This agreement, is it more or less than what we had before? Is it like a similar agreement that you signed previously?
So this agreement is precisely the level of service we're receiving right now. Yeah, with no change. A slight increase in the cost. Deputy Mayor?
Just for clarity, we don't get to tell them what we're going to pay them. They just tell us what it's going to cost us. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's right. And for council's clarity, the cost did go down fairly significantly a couple years ago, and is starting to pop back up, which isn't, I guess, not surprising given that everything costs more over time. Councillor Tadman.
And there is times when we get a little bit of, well, not a little bit, some rebate back. So if we can keep our community nice and lawful, we get more money back. It's the times when there's lots of investigations going on that it costs us more.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. If I recall, in previous years, we would have had maybe the inspector or a representative from the OPP come and make a presentation at council, or at least offer time that council could ask questions directly. Wondering if that could also maybe be part of the friendly amendment, if council agreed?
Certainly we can, if that's okay with members of council. We can ask the inspector or someone from Aurelia to come, and my experience when they come and talk contract is we start asking questions about the formula, and no one can ever answer the question about how they came up with the number. So it's just frustrating for everyone. But, I'm sure Inspector O'Halloran would be happy to come and talk about levels of service and what are provided. And of course, we get that information through the Police Services Board minutes as well. But, yeah. Anything else? Councillor LeBlanc?
Through you, Mayor, the level of service that they give, did it have to do that they couldn't deal with the vandals or all the young kids that were running around this place in front, or now they're ripping down the Christmas trees over at the kiosk where we have our Christmas lights and stuff? Like, they go there and you can just hear the young kids. They're almost telling them to jump a rope, because I was there when that happened. So the level of service that they give, like, can they stop this? Could they do something? Did they just come in, or what do they do to stop this? Because of all the vandals and stuff that we're doing here, picnic tables, our air conditioning, and they were there, they're here at night, or they're hiding in the trees. Because I've seen 8 of them come out of that tree by the thing one night. You can't see them with the leaves. They're all hiding in there. They're quite good at it. But I just want to know if that could be addressed in this level of service.
Perhaps we could ask for a delegation from the OPP, and you could ask that question directly of the officer. Yeah. So Councillors LeBlanc and Tadman, are you okay if we add and further that council directs staff to provide a report on the cost benefit for increased level of service? And are you okay if we add and further that staff request a level of service delegation from the OPP? You can, sure.
I've wondered before, how many, or do we have some, I know we do have some, but I don't know exactly where they're located, video cameras, because sometimes that's quite a deterrent for the kind of vandalism that Councillor LeBlanc. Should we maybe take a look at that at some point? Yeah, and maybe that could be part of asking the police if that is a helpful.
I know we have some, and I know we're looking at more. Mr. Castleman?
Are we? Okay.
We have, through you, Mr. Mayor, we have a number of different video cameras in different facilities. We're about to embark upon an RFP process for this building to try and address some of the issues that Councillor LeBlanc has recently brought up.
But there are cameras at King Edward Park and Memorial Park. that I'm aware of. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. That's a great idea. I think it's a whole lot cheaper to get video cameras than to pay for more policing time to have them come out each time. And when we talk about increased level of service, of course there's increased cost to that. We can say that very quickly, but what does that mean? What are members of council looking for? What kind of, we want more feet on the ground, more cars, more, what increased level of service? If staff is going to give us a report, I think they need to have an idea of what we want.
I think from another conversation that Councillor Anderson was looking for specifically traffic enforcement. Councillor Anderson, do you want to speak to that?
That's correct, and I'm not talking necessarily dollars. I'm talking about use of manpower, use of time, perhaps blitzing areas, doing some traffic enforcement, maybe some roving radars, things like that, using the same manpower. So I'm not talking about necessarily increasing number of bodies or cruisers or...
Deputy Mayor?
But we're already paying for those things, so if we want more of it, we're going to have to increase. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how it's going to work.
Correct.
I don't think we can ask for more if we're not willing to pay more.
We can ask for anything that we feel that is necessary for the community. We're hearing a lot of objection from the community about speed, and if you read about it, every community has this problem right now. So what are we doing to address it? Are we just sitting idle, and it's like what's happening in the park, what's happening in here? We need to be a little proactive, I think, and ask for a little more assistance. Yes, everybody wants more money to do things, but sometimes if you move your manpower and come up with a plan, it can be done. It can be done. It's being done elsewhere.
Mr. Castleman.
So just to through you, Mr. Mayor, on that point, excellent discussion. I'm just going to talk out loud here to try and facilitate our discussion here. So, Councillor Anderson, you're suggesting that we're not looking for an increase in level of service. We're looking to work with the board and the OPP to reallocate existing services based upon a particular need relating to traffic. So we're not talking about 2 more officers and 1 more car. We're talking about reallocating 5% of their time, perhaps, to traffic, with the understanding that they have the global issue of adequate and appropriate policing services. They have to make sure that all of the services are provided, but from time to time, they have to shift gears, just as we do. We have to shift gears based upon priorities, and if there's a new priority called traffic enforcement, perhaps for a period of time they shift gears. So that's a little bit different than what our Deputy Mayor is talking about with respect to an enhanced level of service, because if we're talking about adding 2 officers in 1 vehicle, we're going to have to pay the price associated with that. So again, I'm looking for some clarity with respect to my next discussion with the inspector, with respect to him coming perhaps as early as the 16th and talking to council.
Councillor Tadman.
Help me out here. Do we still have community policing?
We do.
We have people on the council on community policing?
We have a community policing committee, yes we do.
Yeah, and the Police Services Board is an open board. Anybody can go, any councillor can go and bring their beefs and concerns. Because I definitely, sitting here now, don't want to add more to that policing contract. And I understand what Councillor Anderson is saying, but as our numbers person over here, whenever we ask for more, it costs more. So I think there's ways around with video cameras, and also, bringing our concerns forward to the Police Services Board and talking to the police and seeing how we can maybe, help some of the problems that are in the town.
Councillor Anderson.
The last thing I want is an increase as well. But one thing has happened. This community is growing very fast. It's spreading out. We're talking about our boundaries. We're talking about the amount of work that the police need to do to service our area, or the amount of area there's to cover. They're asking for, if you read over their contract, it's basically they're looking for an increase just because of the policing costs that have gone up in basically at 2%. That's what most police forces are getting right now. And they're still working on last year's contract anyhow. They're not even working on the new contracts. But 2%, it seems to be the happy number, at least, that's going on in other communities. I think they're being very reasonable. I think we're paying the same level, if you want to use and you're right on, Bob, as far as clarifying more what I was trying to say is about the level of service. But the level of service would be in your costs, and I agree with you too. I don't want to see an increase in cost, but if we're going to get, for a larger community and growing community, if we're going to get a better quality of life, safety, all those things, I'm not going to throw that around, but that's where I'm coming from. And I think we need to look ahead. This is a contract for how long?
5 years.
5 years. So we got to look ahead as well as not be proactive about this, not just be same old. So.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
I just want to clarify what I was talking about. I'm not looking for an increase in service. I'm not looking for a decrease, because before you can take to that step, you'd have to understand what you're getting for your money now. So if the OPP come here, then they can clarify. Because I wouldn't say we need more patrol, because I don't know how much they do now. I don't know speeding, because I don't know how much they do now. So it's more just clarification on what we're getting for those of us that are fairly new here, like just more clarification. You can't really get to point B when you don't know where point A is. So.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
We have monthly police services board meetings. Those minutes come to our agendas, and it says very clearly how many hours for all those things every month. So the info is there. It's there for us to read. You can go through old agendas and we can find that out. I just don't want them to come here and ask. I mean, I have no problem with them coming here. It's probably a good idea, but the information is there for us.
Yeah, quite right. If the inspector's coming, it's going to be a discussion about service levels, not statistics, which are provided to the Police Service Board and members of council through those minutes on a monthly basis. So the foot patrol hours are, in the neighborhood of 24, 25 hours a month, and we often don't see the officers patrolling on foot because they do it at night. They tend to be in the downtown core, checking shop stores and seeing what's going on in the park, when the rest of us are wisely at home. So they want to be out there when the bad guys are out there, right? That's the point and all that. And certainly we know, to Councillor Anderson's point, that there are often pockets or areas where traffic enforcement could be increased, and I think maybe that's the discussion about service enhancement and what that cost might look like. So do you need me to read this motion now that we've added the two things, or are we good? Everyone okay? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And our next report is with regard to the January 2020 Council Planning Meeting Schedule. Madam Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The Council received the staff report concerning the first Council meeting in January 2020, and that Council meetings from January 2020 be changed to one regular Council meeting January 13th and Planning Council meeting January 15th, and that staff be directed to advertise the change. Is there any discussion? Councillor Anderson.
Would it be fair to ask when our budget meetings would be planned or scheduled?
It would be fair to ask, but we probably don't have an answer, or we would already know.
But we're on the threshold, I think, and so
I think we will see those schedules starting to come through for early in the new year. We won't be in budget deliberations, I don't think, before the new year.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. There are no notices of motion or motions. There's no unfinished business. We'll move into bylaws. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services of Ontario and the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton for the provision of police services. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The Council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. The adoption bylaw number 129, 2019 for the official plan amendment number 6. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The Council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 and 39 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend Bylaw 140-2002, as otherwise amended, of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton, otherwise known as the Municipality of Brighton Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We move into reports of advisory committees of council, reports, minutes, and council reports. Our first one is the Rural Advisory Committee, and it's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council receive the Rural Advisory Committee meeting minutes from June 20th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's not so much for the Rural Advisory Committee, although it is part of their minutes. Item 6.3, promoting the Rural Advisory Committee, they've made note there that social media is not an option, as we do not have a social media policy. Do we have a media policy?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Hagerman is our Manager of Economic Development and Communication and has responsibility for posting on our social media pages.
Okay, so all committees, if they have something that they want posted on our social media page, could now direct things to Mr. Hagerman.
I think so, as long as it doesn't become his full-time job. He does have other important work to do.
No, exactly. I haven't got shoes to sell. I'm not going to sell.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, minutes is community events and civic awards. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council received the community events and civic awards advisory committee meeting minutes from October 8th, 2019. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Accessibility. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council received the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes from October 11th, 2019. Any discussion? Councillor Rowley?
Thank you again. I believe that Councillor Tadman sits on the accessibility, maybe along with Councillor Bateman. You speak of the SMILE program being an initiative from Victoria Order of Nurses. Do we know if that's also still run through community care?
Any other questions? Councillor Tadman?
Not a question, but we are planning a day, and it's been postponed. It wasn't going to be in December, but our CAO needed a bit more time to organize staff, so that'll be happening in the new year, because we have to know exactly what's needed to be prepared to enforce all new buildings and anything that concerns accessibility. So we will have some people there to to teach all of us, including staff, so.
Brilliant, thank you. Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll move into heritage, with some separated out here. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receives the recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee that the Brighton Digital Archives has received donations from the public in the amount of $387. At the request of the Brighton Digital Archives Committee, the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends to Council that these funds be transferred to the Heritage Advisory Committee funds for the future use of the Digital Archives Group. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
I wasn't at that meeting. Can we just find out from Ms. Whitfield what that motion needs to say? Because I know when they receive funds, there needs to be something saying that it's going to be put somewhere. Can you let us know what that motion, well, I mean, this is their motion, but we need to decide what we're going to do with it.
We're essentially providing direction to staff to move monies around, so.
Yes, so council is forming a new committee for the Brighton Digital Archives. And so this is going to make it a little messier. My recommendation would be to not pass this resolution, and that I bring forward with my year-end transfers to reserves, that we establish a new reserve for the Brighton Digital Archives, and that we transfer their donations from 2019 into the new reserve. That would be my recommendation, make it a lot cleaner. We don't have Heritage Advisory Committee fund. That doesn't exist. We do have a Heritage Building Reserve. Perhaps that's what they meant, but it's just, it doesn't make sense because it's misleading. It doesn't speak correctly to our funds.
Is there any reason we wouldn't go ahead and pass your recommendation tonight, or would you rather bring forward a full report?
The Digital Archives group has received donations throughout the year.
Okay, I get it.
So I think it would be cleaner the other way.
It's more than $387 is what you're saying. We've already spent too much time on $387, in my opinion. Councillor Bateman, Councillor Anderson, will you withdraw your motion? And Director Whitfield, you don't require Council's direction. You're going to prepare a report.
That's correct.
Thank you. The next heritage motion is moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The Council receives the recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends to Council that they support the motion to purchase the Grand Trunk Railway Station, recognizing it as a heritage designated property under the Heritage Act. Is there any discussion? I would recommend that we not pass this motion because it's essentially saying we should go ahead and purchase something and we haven't received any information on it. So I'm not sure this is a good recommendation to pass at this stage. Councillor Tadman.
I was thinking the same. And is there any update coming soon, CAO, to do with?
I believe we're receiving a report next week. Is that true? Oh no, is that something else? Mr. Castleman, why don't you speak to that?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I'll give Council an update with respect to what's been happening. As you know, Council passed a notice of motion back about 6 weeks ago or so, and they had asked staff to investigate the cost to purchase, cost to maintain, and cost to operate on an ongoing basis Memory Junction. So Mr. Hagerman and myself have met with the principals taking care of the file. I think our first meeting was perhaps last Friday. So we're starting. And we had posed a number of different questions. And so I've asked Mr. Hagerman to bring forward an interim report for your consideration. If you want to move forward with due diligence, it's going to cost some money. So I think we have to turn our mind to that, and that report should be coming forward to you in the not too distant future. I'm not sure if it's going to be next week, but in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Councillors Bateman and Anderson, do you want to withdraw or do you want to vote on this? It's your motion, Councillor Bateman. That motion is withdrawn. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, second by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting minutes from October 21st, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Now we move into the reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the Police Services Board meeting minutes from September 27th, 2019 and October 25th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receive the DBIA March, April, May, June, July, September, and October 2019 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. We move into correspondence. The first correspondence is from Beru seeking support to purchase a new rescue boat, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receive the request for financial support from the Brighton Auxiliary Rescue Unit. Is there any discussion? Councillor Tadman.
I move that.
You did.
Oh, okay. I think that it should be forwarded to budget for discussion.
May I add that? Is that okay with you as the seconder?
Yes.
And further, that this correspondence be considered during budget deliberations. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. The next is from East Northumberland Secondary School with regard to the Hope Project, and motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council, yeah, I see that, but I'm assuming you want to support it. That Council support the request from ENSS to waive fees associated to the rental of the King Edward Community Centre for our fundraising event, Community Trivia Night, Thursday, February 13th, 2020, for the construction of the ENSS Community Garden of Hope. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
I think it's a great idea. I think maybe council and staff should put in a team.
Well, we look forward to you organizing that. Thank you, Councillor Rowley, for your volunteerism.
Sign up on my mailbox, please.
I'm not into trivia.
I think it would be fun too, and I look forward to joining you.
I've already got two.
I believe it's already in my calendar. So that's perfect. That'll work out just fine. Is there any further discussion? Do we know what the rough cost of waiving these fees is? It does? Thank you. How much now? Oh, that's much better than your first figure. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson. Sorry, this is with regard to a request for a berm further outside the Parks and Rec garage. A motion moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the request from Graham and Kathy Mutton for the installation of a berm barrier at the Parks and Recreation Yard garage. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. We have no FYI correspondence, so we move to question period. If there are members of the public who have questions with regard to an item on our agenda this evening, you may come forward, Mrs. Richardson. She knows the routine.
Good evening, Brenda Richardson, 104 Raglan. It's in regard to the police costing that you were just talking about, and some of the councillors mentioned about speeding. Would it be possible, before you have this police officer come to talk to you, look at the cost of perhaps installing speed bumps in some of the areas of the very large speeding areas that are a complaint? This is in Kingston. They are also putting them in Coburg. This would slow a lot of people down, and over the years you could add them in the various parts. We wouldn't need, hopefully it would slow them down, and also perhaps Mr. Parkinson could get us a cost to what one of these kind of speed bumps would cost, and then when you have the police officer here, ask him if they actually work. If the speed bumps, because lowering the speed limit to 40 has not been working. So I'm just curious, because I attend budget meetings and I'd like to see the police costs stay down. So if this would help with the speeding, we would need the police on the streets as often. Would that be possible?
It's possible. Anything's possible.
Okay. Could you do that?
I cannot. And council would need to provide direction to staff to do that unless staff brought forward a report saying that it would be a wise idea or a good decision. And every public work director I've ever met or seen cringes at the thought of speed bumps. So I can't imagine that our current public works director would bring forward a report. But if members of council have an interest in seeing something like that installed in the community, they should bring forward a notice of motion or talk to the CAO about a discussion during budget deliberations.
Your Worship, did they cringe because of snow plowing?
I think it's just an infrastructure, a real infrastructure issue throughout the community.
Okay.
Nightmare, yeah.
Okay. No, I don't know that much about them. That's why I was just curious. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from members of the public? Thank you. We have no in-camera session. And so we move to the confirmatory bylaw, moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council gives a bylaw, its first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on December 2nd, 2019. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that the December 2nd, 2019 council meeting adjourn at 7:53 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you all.